back seat of their toilet. And it's just like, I think because my parents had one of those books where it's like 101 amazing stories you'll never. And it's like all the stories are perfect enough for you to take a shit too, Drive-by movies. My name is Blaise.
And I'm James.
And this week, never have I ever seen The Great Escape.
The great drama. The great entertainment, the great adventure begins with The Great Escape.
So fun fact, we actually both haven't seen The Great Escape, so today we will be doing a deep dive into this 1963 classic directed by John Sturges. It stars none other than Steve McQueen. Also has Richard Attenborough and Charles Bronson.
So I chose this movie, and I have to say one of the reasons I chose it was because back in the day, I remember my dad would always be like, oh, do you want to watch The Great Escape? Or you haven't seen The Great Escape? And I was like, you know what? It's time. I've always kind of looked at Amazon Prime as my guiding voice, the algorithm that, usually lets me down, but I like to find out what kind of stuff it throws at me. Recently, I watched 12 Angry Men, and I think it knew, like, all right, you like classics, you want another classic, threw me The Great Escape, had to check it out, because usually it throws me like the word, like Cannibal Woman in the Avocado Jungle of Hell. It gives me like, I mean, we love that movie here at Driveby Movies, but it usually throws me stuff where it's like zapped, where it's like, what? It throws me just the weirdest stuff because we did a whole series of direct to dumpster. But this was definitely, I have to say, like, just watching, like a classic, great American movie, I thought that this really hit all the bells and whistles, and it was just, I think one of the things that makes this movie so iconic is just that score. As soon as the music came up at the beginning of the movie, I was like, have I played this in like a middle school band before? And I might have, I might not have, but I feel like it was just, I was there. I've definitely heard the soundtrack before.
Right, yeah. No, it's funny. I can, as someone who knows your dad, like, I can 100% like hear everything your dad would have said to like try to get you to watch this movie and stuff. I can imagine it all. And what I thank this movie is great. I did enjoy it despite the almost 3-hour runtime. What's it called?
That's probably what stopped me from watching it those years ago, I have to say.
Well, actually, it took me like 3 days to watch this. I started it Sunday night, and we're filming this on a Tuesday. And watched some of it on Monday night, and then I finished it today on Tuesday morning. And it's a great movie, but it also gave us that classic whistle scene and the Breakfast Club. And also it gave us the huge classic Chicken Run. Literally, the theme song from that movie is almost taken exactly from the score of this movie. And it's pretty much the same exact plot, too.
It's definitely Aardman's homage to The Great Escape.
Yeah.
And I think that has to do a lot with this movie was like a huge success because it was one of those movies that really, nowadays, so many movies do it and it gets annoying, but it was one of those movies that said, based on an amazing true story, and it meant it. Like, it was like, yes, this is a true story, this did happen, this is actually incredible, this is like belongs in one of those books that you find on someone's back seat of their toilet. And it's just like, I think because my parents had one of those books where it's like 101 amazing stories you'll never. And it's like all the stories are perfect enough for you to take a shit too, and you drop something and you gain some knowledge at the same time.
You need some inspiration when you're on that throne. Yeah,
exactly. So this is one of those stories that like it was based on a true story and it meant it. Nowadays they use that all the time in like the most silly like Lifetime like thrillers, but back then people would definitely were inspired by like a movie like this, like, wow, all these guys could really get out and just stick it to the Nazis.
Right, yeah. It definitely had that like theme of just like America, fuck yeah. And as someone like, America's 100% not perfect, but that's a whole different subject. But like when people say like make America great again, I think they're under the impression that all Americans are like Steve McQueen in this movie and stuff. Like I think that's what they think of, like the ideal America and the greatest American citizen and stuff.
Yeah, and let's be honest though, who doesn't want to be Steve McQueen? Like,
yeah, the motorcycle stunts. Yeah, I gotta say that his stunt, like I knew he was like known for driving motorcycles in his films and stuff, but like even though he doesn't do the biggest stunt in this movie, like it's still a lot of the crazy stunt work we see in this. Like I miss motorcycle chase scenes. Like as a kid, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, that was one of my favorite scenes ever, the motorcycle scene in that movie. And just like I was taken back to like my childhood watching this one, and to see it hold up from a movie so old, like that was really rad to see.
Yeah, definitely. The only problem I have to say, not talking about motorcycles, but with this story is that I did watch, I think it was like a making of on the DVD, and it talked about how the Americans' involvement in this, like actual in the real story, the true story, wasn't as much as what was portrayed in the film. Yeah. So it is a little disappointing that like to hear that. I mean, they're still there, but it wasn't like as equal as it kind of appeared in the movie. But I think that was really done so that Hollywood could get people to go see the movie, people that were stoked, and in America to see like someone like Steve McQueen just really buckle down and help all these guys try and escape. Yeah,
and it was very like just inspiring to watch. Like I was just like, where's this movie gonna go? Because about the 2 hour mark is when they escape and stuff, and I was like, oh, is the movie almost over? But I knew there was still another third hour to like really go through. But like just those moments still were also pretty intense, and I'd actually say that's probably my favorite. Those are my favorite scenes of the movie, that final hour essentially. And just seeing like a lot of the stuff is kind of happens off screen and you hear about it, and it's sad to hear. And like it makes it hit hard because even though like there's like some fun loving moments and stuff, and there's some comedic moments, it's still a war movie. And so like I'm glad that they didn't just make it a lighthearted, fun action political propaganda movie. It is actually like something like, no, it was a dark time and stuff, like
yeah. And I think honestly a lot of that has to stem from, I watched this, there's a series that's available on Netflix. It's called 5 Came Back, and I definitely recommend this to anyone. Like, I think honestly anyone could enjoy this. It's like going to a history class essentially, but really interesting and entertaining. It's about these 5 directors that came from Hollywood during World War II, and they went to give back to their country and help in the war efforts that the United States was engaging in at the time. So they went to the war and either were shooting documentary or narrative films that came out at the time. Some of these films could definitely be construed as propaganda, and maybe they were, because at the end of the day, like, propaganda, I guess, is just it depends on the case, I guess. But right, I'm not saying like propaganda is good, but it definitely, I think especially in World War II, there's a very clear-cut evil. It's not as it's really going to be hard to fight for that Nazi side, right, once you know everything that goes on. So I think it's easier to say like that American propaganda at that time probably wasn't the worst thing, but we really need to get people back home engaged in the war efforts. So these directors kind of helped. And the director of this film, The Great Escape, is John Sturges. He was one of those directors that went and helped in World War II.
One thing that caught me off guard also with the cast was, I mean, I didn't even recognize Charles Bronson at first. Like, he's got a very recognizable face, but I didn't realize that he was in this for a while. But also Richard Attenborough. I've never seen how he looked as a young person. We all remember him as John Hammond from Jurassic Park. And he's fantastic in this movie. I'd say he's actually he's in it just as much as Steve McQueen. And I loved his moments within the movie and stuff, especially when we actually get to the escape moments and everything. Like there's some intensity during his moments as well. And Donald Pleasant's also like a great performance by him too.
Yeah, I had to say with Donald Pleasant's character and his kind of like what he was going through was extremely interesting, and also his friendship that he had created. It was kind of like some of the most endearing parts of this movie. I have to say, like, this film did really have it all. Like, but this is basically a blockbuster in 1963. This is like one of those movies that you go to. This is Avengers Infinity War. This is like the equivalent because I mean, it's like basically 3 hours. It's kind of the same thing, but also has a little bit of everything, something for everyone. Definitely inspired a lot of people. Like you mentioned, you know, Aardman created Chicken Run as kind of an homage to this movie, but let alone, I'm sure it inspired a lot of people at the time to really achieve and become the greatest after watching The Great Escape.
Right. Yeah. One thing, like, actually, I'm wondering, I don't know if you know the research on this, but I'm not, one of my favorite films of all time. I watched it all the time as a little kid. It's a comedy called It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. And that movie came out in the 60s as well. And it's 2 hours.
It's the same year, I'm almost positive.
Oh, really? Yeah. I know it's I think it's
1963.
Gotcha. I know it's a like 2 hour and 20 minute movie. Like that's kind of common nowadays, but back then it was really long. So they added an intermission in there. And I'm wondering, was there an intermission in this movie when it came out or?
Not the version that I watched. Yeah. They didn't have it on Amazon Prime, but I would be interested. I mean, yeah, it is super long. It might be possible. Yeah. How long was Mad, Mad, Mad World?
It's about 2 hours and 20 minutes. And I know if on the DVD copy that I owned as a kid, like it came with like the intermission was actually in the scene and you could just skip over it. But what's it called? I'm not sure.
How long is the intermission? Is it 5 minutes or 2 minutes?
It's about 5 minutes or so. Yeah. Time to give everyone a chance to go to the bathroom and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would be interested to see if it had it in there. Mm-hmm. But I think nowadays, like, there's so many long movies that this was really long, and we definitely prefer short movies here. But it's like, what are you gonna do? This is The Great Escape, dude. This is the greatest. This is the greatest story ever told.
It wasn't the escape. It's The Great Escape. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think? This was gonna be 90 minutes? Get out of here. Yeah. This is The Great Escape.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have to say I really enjoyed it. I thought, like, it's fun, but I think the thing, like you had mentioned earlier, is just like it has a little bit of something for everyone, and it's not just all fun and games. Like it can be serious at times. It carries that gravitas that war has, but it's definitely, you know, more reminds me of like these old school Hollywood big productions that, you know, it's just kind of crazy. Like it's kind of crazy that this movie, it's not crazy that it exists, but it's kind of cool that they brought like such a movie that seems unbelievable to the big screen in 1963.
Right, yeah. Like, I'm sure there were multiple stories that were somewhat similar, but hearing the fact that like 73 or 75 people escaped, and sad to hear that so many of them died after escaping. But it's still a very fantastic story, something that I wasn't really aware of. And seeing it on screen, like, I thought it was a great adaptation and everything. And but I see why this movie is considered a classic, and glad I finally got a chance to watch it.
Definitely. So, guys, if you want to support the show, the easiest way to do that is by clicking in the description box below. It's an Amazon affiliate link. Go ahead and watch The Great Escape.
Leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought about the movie and our thoughts. And another way to help us out is by smashing that like button. Lets this video reach a larger audience. And if you haven't, please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and you'll get all our latest updates.
Get ready for next week. There'll be a brand new Never Have I Ever.